Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to dig into Mark Dunkelman's book, Why Nothing Works, to try and understand the hidden reasons why government often feels so paralyzed.
So let's just dive right in with a question that, honestly, a lot of us are probably asking. Whether we're talking about high-speed rail, new housing, or big, clean energy projects, it often feels like we're stuck. The source material asks a simple question. Why does it seem like progress has just ground to a halt?
And wow, this quote really just hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? A project that should be incredibly simple, building a public toilet, somehow morphs into a multi-year, multi-million-dollar saga. And look, this isn't just about one city. It's a perfect symptom of a much, much larger problem. So the big question is, where does all this gridlock come from? Well, the book's central argument is pretty surprising. It's not the usual partisan finger-pointing we're all used to. Instead, it points to a deep, kind of hidden conflict happening within progressivism itself. It's like this internal tug of war. You've got two totally contradictory ideas about what power is and what it's for, and they've been battling it out for over 100 years. One side wants to build power up, and the other side wants to tear it down. All right, so first up, you've got what the book calls Hamiltonian progressivism, but let's just call it the builder. This is the side that believes to do good things, you need to concentrate authority. Think big, bold projects, all guided by experts, all for the public benefit.
And then, on the other side of the ring, you have the complete opposite, Jeffersonian progressivism, or the checker. This side is super skeptical of centralized power. It sees big government as a threat to individual liberty that has to be constrained, checked, and basically tied down at every opportunity. So you see the problem, right? It creates this massive internal conflict. Is government a tool we should use, or a threat we need to chain up? For a long time, there was a pretty clear winner in this debate. For basically the first two-thirds of the 20th century, the builders ran the show. The idea of progress was all about creating large, powerful institutions to go after the nation's biggest and toughest challenges. I mean, you just have to look at the timeline. From creating the first big regulatory bodies to the huge bureaucracies of the New Deal, think about the Tennessee Valley Authority, all the way to building the entire interstate highway system. The core belief was always the same. The biggest problem we face is a lack of centralized control. And this quote from Robert Moses, maybe the ultimate master builder, just perfectly captures that whole mindset. Progress meant that sometimes individuals had to take one for the team. But, this approach had a pretty serious dark side, and that dark side was about to spark a full-blown rebellion. And yeah, that dark side absolutely fueled a massive backlash. Because starting in the 1960s, you see this huge cultural shift, this growing cynicism and distrust toward the establishment. Think about it. You had the failures of urban renewal, which literally bulldozed entire neighborhoods. You had the growing distrust from the Vietnam War. And then you have the civil rights movement, which was all about fighting oppressive systems. Suddenly, a lot of progressives started to see big, centralized power not as a savior, but as this coercive octopus that needed to be stopped. And this famous line from the student movement just captures that new spirit perfectly. The whole game changed. The goal wasn't to steer the machine of government anymore. It was to jam the gears and make it stop before it could hurt anyone else. And this wasn't just talk. It completely remade our laws. So now we get to the core of the problem, paralysis by design. The book argues that these reformers, who were genuinely trying to do the right thing and were terrified of abuse, started redesigning government from the ground up to diffuse power, not concentrate it. This is where laws like the National Environmental Policy Act, you've probably heard of it as NEPA, come from. The idea was great, right? Force the government to study every single impact of a project. But here's the crucial part. It also gave everyday citizens powerful legal tools to challenge and, more importantly, delay any decision made by the powerful. And the results is, well, it's this: the modern approval gauntlet. Building anything today means trying to survive this maze of potential veto points. The whole system is basically designed to give the advantage to anyone who wants to shout no. And this paralysis by design doesn't just cause delays, it makes everything ridiculously expensive. I mean, the book points to studies showing that building stuff here in the US can cost 6 times more than in South Korea, and a whopping 50% more than in Europe. What this system creates is something the book calls a vetocracy, a government where it's way, way easier to stop things than it is to build them. And this number, 25,000, is a perfect, painful example.
Those are the jobs that vanished when Amazon's big headquarters project in Queens got canceled, basically because a single official had the power to kill the whole deal.
So, where does that leave us? Well, it leaves us with this massive unresolved tension. We've swung from one extreme, power being way too concentrated, to the other, where now it's so spread out that it's almost impossible to get anything done. I mean, it's a real dilemma, isn't it? We love the builder's ability to do huge, transformative things, but we are rightly terrified of its potential for abuse. At the same time, we really value the checker's instinct to protect the little guy, but now we're stuck living in the gridlock and the incompetence it creates. We just haven't found that workable middle ground. And here's the final twist, the political sting in the tail. The book argues that by championing a system that makes government look slow, clunky, and ineffective, progressives have accidentally shot themselves in the foot. Because it's really hard to convince people to empower an institution that can't even seem to build a public bathroom efficiently.
And so that leaves us with the big, provocative question at the heart of this whole analysis. How can we build big, important things again without bulldozing the little guy? It's a challenge to all of us, really, to rethink how we balance action with protection so that maybe, just maybe, we can get things working again.